Morning. I'm Michael Powers, the president of the New York State Correctional Officers Police Benevolent Association, and today we're day 2 of our press conferences here to address the high rise of assaults in our correctional facilities. Despite repeatedly relaying our concerns about inmate attacks on staff, to DOCCS leadership, the number of assaults are on pace to go over 700 this year. That's an 11% increase from last year. Assaults on staff have increased 24% since 2010, even as inmate populations have decreased by over 3,000. DOCCS statistics show zero number of assaults on staff and less than 1% moderate assaults from the calendar years of 2009 to 2013. Yet in the past year alone, we had officers stabbed, hospitalized, with concussions, broken bones, and compound fractures. Some of these employees will never return to state service. They simply cannot continue to downplay the injuries our members are sustaining in our workplace. Contraband continually finds its way into our facilities. Drugs are an ever-increasing problem among inmates. The reintroduction of heroin in our correctional facilities, along with the introduction of synthetic drugs such as Suboxone and synthetic marijuana, play a prevalent role in the increase in violence in our correctional facilities. Makeshift weapons hidden by inmates that are used against other inmates and against staff. Several lockdowns have occurred in the past year, resulting in numerous amounts of weapons being found in correctional facilities. Increasing gang violence and gang activity is on the rise in our facilities, which promotes workplace violence. 15 facilities have closed since 2010. The reclassification of the inmate population from the maximum security to the medium security from the maximum security into the medium securities have contributed to the increase in violent offenders in our prison system. The continued practice of closing posts in our workplace is of genuine concern for numerous reasons. One, it takes away the vital safety and security that we provide to the inmates and to the proper operations of our facilities. This is a pervasive problem throughout DOCCS prison system that has seriously put our members at risk and has not been effectively addressed by the administrations at the local levels in our facilities and at a statewide level. DOCCS has recently issued a release countering our facts that we've displayed regarding the assaults on staff. And many of their issues pertain to lack of injury in the workplace. Yet if their perception of their assaults in our workplace were to take place in our communities and on our streets, the worst case scenario if a complaint were filed, the worst case scenario would be a misdemeanor lodged in the community. These injuries, or these complaints from the outside communities compared to the inside communities, there should not be a difference. Many practices the department has instilled as of recently is the disciplinary guidelines for disciplinary dispositions in our facilities. The inmate disciplinary system in our department's most important tool for influencing and controlling the actions of inmates within the state's prison system. In an environment where violent inmate behavior, including assaults against our members, occurs all too frequently, any loosening of the confinement penalties is likely to adversely impact the men and women who work the dangerous jobs as a correction officer and correction sergeant. Along with the disciplinary guidelines, they've also implemented a shoe settlement, and that also allows for an inmate who breaks the rules in our correctional setting, allows for them to not serve a penalty to prevent them from doing the same action as prior. So with that are our concerns today. Today we have former Assemblyman George Amadori with us, who's a Senate District candidate for District 46, I believe, Assemblyman James Tedesco, and Assemblyman Phil Steck, and we're going to allow them an opportunity to speak on our behalf. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Tedesco.
Okay, because it's age before beauty here. Listen, what we're hearing here is just totally unacceptable. These are the men and women who keep us safe because they keep our corrections facilities safe. To think that this violence is being perpetrated on them is something that cannot stand. Now, you know, the buck usually stops at the top, and I am upset at the governor of this state. I'm upset at the governor of this state because, and this is an example of it, it seems he's been acting by way of fiat. There are three branches of government: judicial, executive, and legislative. We should be involved in the processes that are taking place. But I might be even more upset at some of my colleagues and the leaders in the New York State Legislature for allowing him to have that ability to close down, I believe it's 4 facilities, corrections facilities over the last year, with little or no input by their elected officials. We have McGregor out in Saratoga. We're very close to my assembly district. And when you close down those facilities, those individuals who are being watched in those facilities have to move to other facilities, or they're let back into our community. So there's a safety factor there for the individuals in our community, and there's a safety factor obviously for our corrections officers, because when there's expanded things like double bunking or triple bunking and these things happen, and you're putting more of these violent criminals in lesser facilities, you're going to have this type of violence. And I just don't think we can allow this to take place anymore. We've got to stand up as elected officials, as two bodies, as a part of our constitutional obligations, and say enough is enough. If we're going to ever err, it's going to be on the side of keeping the men and women who are out there putting their lives on the line every day to keep these facilities safe so we can be safe. It's got to err on making sure they have positions to do their job, and they're being protected in doing their job. And that's why, you might remember last year, and I've got broad-based support, I believe Senator Marchione is sponsoring the legislation I put forth, to say that if there are going to be these plans to right size, and the governor calls this right size, I call it wrong sizing, okay? But I'm not opposed to right sizing. We should do the best we can at the lowest cost with the best level of excellence of service for our constituents. That's what we're charged for doing, but he hasn't done that. The legislation that the senators are sponsoring and several of my colleagues are sponsoring in the New York State Assembly is to allow us, or to mandate us, to be a part of that process. The planning process for the posts, for the closures, for how many facilities we need, where the corrections officers are, how many we should have. We should be a part of that discussion. There should be hearings on that. This bill says, give us a plan 1 year in advance. If you're going to close down any facilities, let us discuss it with you. Let us help you with that plan. Let us bring in the professionals so we can get their input, and then let us ratify any plan to make a good, appropriate, size-wise preparation and completion of what we want to do with our corrections facilities. I think that makes eminent sense. So I think what we have to ask the governor is to go back to the drawing board, take a look at what he's done and what's happening to the men and women who are putting their lives on the line. And we have to go back to the leaders in the New York State Legislature and say, we have to be involved in this process. We have to have input, because we're there with our constituents, and many of our corrections officers are also our constituents, and their safety is paramount. And I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the service you provide for us.
Thank you. I'd like to thank President Powers and NYSCOPBA for having me here today. I join with my colleague on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Tedisco. This is a bipartisan effort. The safety of our corrections officers is paramount. And what I've seen in my 2 years in the New York State Assembly is there's been a tremendous amount of cutting corners in the state government. We talk about reform and redesign of our government, but that's not what really is happening. What's happening is cutting corners, trying to cut costs, which are really putting in danger, in this instance, the men and women who serve as corrections officers in our state. And therefore, I think we do, and I join with Jim Tedisco in calling for a re-examination of what's going on in the Department of Correctional Services. We need to make sure that the corrections officers are safe from inmate violence, and I can't think of anything more important in providing for our workforce in the state than that. So again, I would reiterate, reform does not mean cutting corners, because when you cut corners, you do so on the backs of the workforce and endanger them. So again, thank you for having me today.
Joe.
George Amador, the candidate for the 46th Senate District, and I want to thank Mike Powers for allowing me to be here and for all the men and women. This is a very important issue. In the 46th Senate District, we have 2 correctional facilities, Greene and Coxsackie. And with the over 800 COs, correction officers, that are at risk, in danger, the governor and the state legislature need to do a much better job for not just the men and women who are in uniform and keeping our community safe in jail, but for all New Yorkers, to keep all of us citizens safe and secure. So I want to thank them for putting their lives at risk, for bringing about the proper care, justice, and protection that our inmates need, and we need to do much better as state legislators and government to give them the facility, the resources, and the backing to make sure that our communities are safe. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for what you do.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take any questions.
So what are you looking for? What do you want to see happen?
Our communications with the department has dwindled as far as our discussions regarding this issue. They dwindled, maybe not even heard. There are mechanisms in place that are to be moving forward, but we haven't seen any action with that yet. Those are our genuine concerns. Those are the concerns that we've brought forward that seem to have fallen on deaf ears. Much of the assaults that happen are serious assaults. We take every assault as serious. They don't, and that's where we're drawing the line in the sand. We can't have our members at jeopardy for the changes that our department has taken in the last couple of years and have it fall on the backs of the peace officers that maintain the gates and the SHDAs that work in our Office of Mental Health facilities. Just to give a quick example here, you know, the department referenced yesterday a comment regarding their terms of assault, whether it would be an accidental bump or whatever the case may be. And to just expound on that again, to share with you the incident that would happen if it were to happen on the street and the charges that would come in that aspect. We had a recent incident on September 17th at Bear Hill Correctional Facility where an offender who barricaded himself with a mop handle, or a broom handle at first, and he was swinging it violently at our staff. What happened is, as the officer responded, the housing unit officer responded for a requested response, which shortly happened after that, this individual dropped the broom handle and picked up a mop handle and nearly struck one of our officers with the mop handle. That to us is serious and should be reported accurately, and should be reported and discussed openly with us. Shortly after he dropped the mop handle, he picked up a mop wringer and swung it. Shortly after that, he was directed to drop it. A response team showed the inmate was subdued and taken off the unit. But that, as an attempt of assault, should be taken just as serious as any assault. So to discount what the department has put out yesterday, that's our rebuttal to their response yesterday. Anything else? Appreciate you coming today. Appreciate our assemblyman and our future senator here or candidate, I apologize, for coming and standing with us today. I want to thank the executive board that's standing with us, and we have many members from our facility and office staff here supporting us today. Thank you for coming.